Well, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live all across the internet. We are sending data to Twitch, to Periscope, to Facebook, to YouTube, and Twitter. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being there. Oh, we got folks tuning in over on the Twitch chat already. Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick. I work at the aquarium here in social media. And as you can see from the graphic up on screen, we have Emily joining us from a few miles away in her humble abode. Emily, how are you doing today?
Thanks for asking. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I hope that you have been enjoying the Kelp Cam so far.
You know, Emily, it helps if I turn on your microphone
Oh,
when we go live.
no.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for being there,
Hi.
everyone. In case you didn't hear Emily, Emily said hi. Emily, take it again.
I
Hi,
did say
Emily. How you doing?
I am doing okay. Still okay. 30 seconds before and now, still doing about the same. Glad that everyone can hear. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hope that you've been enjoying the Kelp Cam so far today.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for being there, everyone. And I'm going to pull up a very special graphic because joining us right now from the aquarium, I believe at the moment, we have amazing aquarist Kelsey is going to join us for this special chat here. Kelsey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well today. Thanks for asking. And yeah, I am at the aquarium. I'm sequestered in one of the conference rooms, and there was a lot of availabilities of conference rooms
Oh yeah, that is
on site.
if there are any silver linings to any of the things happening right now, is that there is plenty of meeting space now at the aquarium. And Kelsey, you are up on the screen right now as a blade of giant kelp there.
I am okay with that.
Okay with that because you would be the kelp forest queen at the moment. Is that the case? You're in charge of the kelp forest exhibit.
I
As it
am
were.
in charge of the kelp forest exhibit, and I'm in charge of the team, very large team that helps to work on it too.
That's wonderful. How many people do you have on your team working on
Oh,
the kelp forest?
at the moment, there's about 15 staff members. But there is a large squadron of volunteer divers that we are missing immensely during this time.
Yeah, shout out to any of the volunteer divers and many of the animal care volunteers that might be tuning in right now to the live stream. Thank you so much for being there when you are able to, everyone, because you really make the aquarium run. Things that are not currently running is our live view here of the kelp forest exhibit. We're pulling in the live webcam. So I think what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to transition us over to some pre-recorded video here of the kelp forest exhibit. And speaking of pre-recorded video, Kelsey, we have a few videos from you that you filmed earlier, right, from inside the kelp forest.
Yeah, I was able to take down a GoPro during some of my dives on Sunday when I was under there. I think I got some cool footage.
Yeah, should be fun. So, Emily, I don't know if you've seen these videos before, but we're going to play some videos of the training that happens here in the kelp forest exhibit. Can you set the scene? I'm going to play the young giant sea bass learning how to target train. Emily, you want to tell the folks what that's about?
Yeah, so some of the animals at the aquarium, including our fish, know how to recognize a visual symbol and object to swim over to get some food. So that's something that I know, Kelsey, you and your team have been working on with our giant sea basses, is getting them to recognize that when we put this specific target into the water, that means that's where the food is going to be. And it makes a lot of other husbandry training with them a whole lot easier.
Yeah, once they clue into target training, the next step for us is to transition into stretcher training. We use basically a blue vinyl stretcher if we need to remove any of our animals for any health concerns or anything like that. Our giant sea bass get freshwater baths 4 times a year, and we use the stretcher to get them out. So if we can train them to swim into the stretcher all by themselves, that's less stress on the fish. So that is what we've been working on. The little one that's being shown right now, before he got put in the kelp forest exhibit, we had him behind in quarantine exhibit, and we started this practice back then. And he was starting to catch on, and he's doing better. But the sharks during this video stream, the leopard sharks, are also learning to target train themselves.
Yeah,
And
that was definitely something we were noticing, is that the giant sea bass really wants to do a good job. In fact, I think that there's a moment in this video where it's getting ready to go into the stretcher and the leopard shark kind of comes and vibes it out, and it looks at you, Kelsey, looks directly into the camera like, come on, like I'm trying my best here. This leopard, look right here, right here. It gets pushed away by the leopard shark, and it just looks directly in your camera, just like, I'm trying to do my lesson, but this shark
I
is
was
in
like,
the
I'm
way.
working on it.
Mom, make him stop.
Hey, you know, a lot of people are at home with their kids and have trouble getting them to quit fighting too. So I've got some underwater kids I'm working on as well.
Absolutely.
Well, what's really funny with this small one is I've been working with this particular fish for about 2 years, so I've got a pretty good relationship with it. And when it was in quarantine, it used to be really stubborn. Like it was trained to the point where it knew to go through the stretcher, but if it wasn't hungry, it would sit outside the stretcher and kind of see if it could train us to feed it, even though it wasn't doing its proper thing.
So it's really who is training who in this situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm gonna throw up here the video that you had there of the leopard shark actually completely pushing the giant sea bass out of the way and going directly into the stretcher and being like, look, I'm a giant sea bass. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Any shrimp for me? Yeah. And so you can see there, everyone, the leopard shark just inside the stretcher where where the giant sea bass should be, just wondering, how come I don't get treats? How come the giant sea bass gets preferential treatment?
Exactly.
Well, it's funny. The leopard sharks they're used to volunteer divers going in there and hand feeding them twice a day, every day.
That's right.
And so when they go up to divers, that's normally how they get food. So now the poor sharks are only getting fed 3 times a week, which in shark world is fine. They can go weeks without feeding, but it's not what they're used to. So any diver comes up and now they're getting more. They're like, wait, this worked a month ago. What's going on here?
Exactly. That's very, very funny stuff. And so this training, you know, a lot of people, we've got people that are in the chat right now that are asking, because they get to watch you live during if you're watching any of the Kelp Forest cams from our website. They probably even saw you earlier today, Kelsey, going in there and doing some maintenance there in the exhibit. So some people were mentioning that they saw this training taking place a little bit earlier on. Can you tell us, what is it like to try to train a fish? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, you can train a dog, or, you know, I've got my human trained or whatever. But when it comes to training a fish, it's definitely something that you can do, and we actually train many animals I think most people would not expect that we're training. So what's it like to try to train a fish?
It's weird because it's so many of the behaviors are similar, so many of the procedures are similar. It's just on a different scale because you're underwater and you're having to deal with that factor. So sometimes you can train fish to come up to the top, to, like, if you're target training and you want them up, but kelp forest is so deep, we knew that we had to get divers to go to them. So that's one of the factors. And it's just about being consistent with everybody and getting a team involved in it. It's definitely an interesting experience, but it's one that we have enjoyed working with and developing. We have 3 giant sea bass in Monterey Bay habitats as well. That are further along. They've been doing training for a lot longer. And so they're pretty far in their training too, and now can all go into the stretcher, and one of them will just stay there with a hand on its head until it is told to exit.
That's adorable.
It's so cute. It's fun.
I just want to let folks know I'm back here now on the live view of the Kelp Forest cam, and actually right behind your graphic right now, Kelsey, we have that larger giant sea bass that we'll talk about here in just a second. Giant sea bass just exited stage left there. But Emily, have you seen any questions there in the chat that we want to ask Kelsey right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a couple of them go by that I definitely think that we can answer right now, especially one of them, which is pretty unique. Kelsey, someone was asking how old that little giant sea bass is,
Ooh,
which, you
good
know,
question.
when we talk about some of our older giant sea basses, it's kind of a, well, it could be this old, it could be this old. But for that little giant sea bass,
That one we
pretty
actually
much
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. It is, let's see here, 4 years and 5 months old.
Wow.
Oh.
I'm sure it's still counting. I'm 4 and 5 months. Yeah.
That's what its eyes were telling me when it was looking at it. I'm 4 years old. Why is the shark kicking? Right?
I'm a big fish now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Come on.
That was one of, for those who have been in the aquarium 4 years and 5 months ago, one of the tiny baby giant sea bass that came in. That it was 0.98 grams, so it wasn't even fully the weight of a paperclip yet. That was on exhibit in one of our smaller exhibits, the Seaweed Garden by the second floor touch pool. And that one we've been able to raise up through multiple exhibits. And I was excited last year because this is the first time we've had 2 giant sea bass in the kelp forest exhibit. And so it has been interesting seeing the way they interact. And just to see kind of a new dynamic in the tank, because the one that has been in there we got in 2006, but it was a lot larger than 1 gram. So we don't know, but it would be at least 14 years old. And so she's kind of been she's the queen of the kelp forest.
Really is. And I do want to point out just very quickly for the folks that are watching and wondering if this is live. Yes, right now we're looking at a live view that Curtis, our webcam wizard, is currently flying around, Kelsey, as you're talking about giant sea bass. He's following the larger giant sea bass there. Our queen of the kelp forest. She's swimming around right in full view right now. So that's who we've been following here.
Oh, good. She heard us talking about her.
Yeah, exactly. She knows. She knows when she's being appreciated.
And
well, she has been doing very, very well at target training, and then we've started to have her follow the target. So our next step is we're going to build a stretcher similar to the one that you saw in the video for the smaller one, but let's see here, smaller guy is 17 pounds and this one is 125, so just on a much larger scale.
A bigger scale.
Yeah. A bigger scale.
And
I'm working on it.
And very, very quickly, Kelsey and Emily, I have a photo of not exactly this giant sea bass when it was younger, but a photo of a young giant sea bass in its orange polka dot phase that we took many years ago. So I'm just going to put that up here on screen. I'm going to try not to block too much of what's happening with Curtis's driving. Let's see, where can I put this photo? Okay. So there we go. So that is what a young giant sea bass looks like. And they go through, I think it's at least 5, right, Kelsey? 5 different color changes in their first year where they're like black and then they're brown and then they're orange. So just a really amazing animal. So that's a young giant sea bass there, everybody up on screen.
Yeah, there's been some cool research going on in the wild. And so we've been working with researchers, which is how we were able to get one of the young juveniles 4 years and 5 months ago. So yeah, it's crazy. The color morphs that they go through, their different life stages. And yeah, sometimes seen, especially with those pelvic fins on the bottom, those huge fins, those are like the cutest thing about them.
So good. Yeah.
Pretty sure they're the same size in the adult.
Absolutely. and so now Kelsey, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to pull up the video of the target training for this adult giant sea bass that Curtis is showing us there. So I'm going to pull up that video real quick if you just want to describe what this is, because it seems like the giant sea bass is following you to a spot to get its food, right?
Yeah, hopefully it'll be in the shot, but this particular sea bass, her target is a large green circle. And so you might be able to see the top part of it. So she's focused in on the circle and you could see her following it. And we're working on getting her to follow it instead of just coming straight to it. Right now, if we go about the length of one window, I've got my dive buddy is standing off to the side. So I kind of go to, this was Morgan at this point. And then Morgan's going to reward the fish once it gets close enough by giving it some food.
Yeah, and so I
love that we could see how it was eating that fish right there too, where it's not just like you hand it and it's taking it out of your hand. You're kind of tossing it in front of her mouth, and she's just opening that mouth.
Sometimes she gets particular about the angle of the fish too.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, she is the queen in here, so
she is the queen.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah,
So,
and I've been very fortunate to be able to do some of the feeding shows
hmm
with the face mask, and there are definite moments where she's so particular about which type of food, how it's offered to her, and she's definitely made me look very silly in front of a whole bunch of people. Where she would just come up, grab the prawn, spit it right back out of my face, and be like, "No, you take that one again. That was not the right way to do it." So definitely a fun time
Shrimp.
with
You
her.
call that a shrimp?
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'll see, I think in the video that just showed, the leopard sharks are still being a little aggressive and trying to get food too, but she outweighs them by quite a bit. So she just shrugs them off.
And so
Little one will get there eventually.
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
that is some fish training that you're seeing there, everybody. Really, really cool stuff from your team there. You know, you don't think too much about what it takes to take care of all these different animals, but they are individuals, and some of them need that extra bit of attention, and that training so important for their health here at the aquarium. Thank you again for getting this amazing GoPro video
Yeah,
from just the other day.
you're welcome. I'm just glad that she behaved because normally when somehow they know when you're filming them and that's when they don't behave.
Yeah. So we got a few questions here on the chat. Kelsey,
Yeah.
maybe some rapid fire giant sea bass facts, if you're
All
ready.
right, I'll do my best.
All right. How old and how big can giant sea basses get is the question.
Ooh, old, we don't fully know. I have heard anywhere from 50 to 80 years old. Unfortunately, they can get up, so they can get up to 500 pounds in the wild. They are an endangered species and they were overfished a lot, so we don't have many in the wild topping out at that amount anymore. But hopefully we will
Yeah.
in years to come.
And we had a really amazing story from some of our colleagues. I know at the Cabrillo Point Aquarium and Long Beach, I believe there were a few other folks there involved as well, where they released so many
That was
young
a
giant sea
really
bass.
cool event. Yeah. I came back from a giant sea bass symposium in February with a lot of those aquarists and the scientists involved in that. And it was kind of a historically what we had been told, or, what our experience was, is that sea bass needed a lot of vertical room to do a lot of their mating dances
Interesting.
before releasing eggs. And these guys were in a shallower exhibit, like in a back parking lot, and boom,
Gotcha.
and it happened.
Wow.
And so, yeah, they were able to get permission from California Fish and Wildlife to release them and raise some of them up, at least a little bit. And yeah, a lot of them are going to be able to be tracked in the wild as well. There's a citizen science project. So another cool thing about sea bass is that their spot locations don't change as they get older. And you can look at the ratios between the spots, and people can take pictures in the wild of sea bass and upload them and then be able to see where that particular fish traveled if it's one that's been logged already.
That's an excellent question.
Really cool.
Yeah,
All of the babies that got released got photographed. So
That's
if
awesome.
they get photographed in the wild and they know about that website and it gets uploaded, we'll be able to keep track of them.
That's great. Yeah, and you just answered a lot of people's questions here
Oh, did I?
all in a row. Yeah.
Like
No, we had
rapid fire, and I'm just keep on going.
No, it was perfect. We had Joan over on Periscope that was wondering, do the giant sea bass spots change? And so we know. No, it's actually a pretty good ID card there. How do they?
Their colorations can change, and they can get darker and lighter based off of their mood or time of day. It can actually happen pretty quickly, especially if you startle them.
Yeah.
Sometimes little queen will be taking a nap in the corner, and we have to go over to her to see if she wants to target, and she turns dark and swims away. She does not like getting woken up from her nap.
That's adorable.
That's
That's awesome.
good.
Kelsey, sorry, Emily, did you see some more questions?
Yeah, well, just kind of tying into what we were talking about before with the breeding. Kelsey, how can you tell the males and the females apart from each other?
So we didn't know this until recently, but a lot of times it's body shape. You also can't tell until they get older. If you look between the pelvic fin and the anal fin, males are a lot more streamlined, so it's more straight, whereas females are a little bit more of a barrel shaped. So it's a little bit, convex. Also, females will have a white spot on either side of their flank. It's hard to see sometimes, but especially when they're in their mating coloration, like a big white spot behind their pectoral fin, that usually means it's a female.
Very
That's awesome. And
yeah, so that's how we were able to tell. So like when we talk about this giant sea bass, that she is an actual she. She
Yeah,
is
we
the
call
queen
her
of
a
Kelp.
she. She's the
Yeah.
queen. The smaller one is still too small to really be able to tell. Possibly a male based off of body shape, but at 17 pounds, that one still has a lot of
He's
change
still
to go
yeah.
through.
So he's still got a long way to go before he becomes a mature fish.
Yes.
Yeah. So these
that's
are
right.
very
Yeah, they're
slow growing,
generally
long
not
lived
sexually
animals.
mature until about 50 to 60 pounds.
Yeah.
Wow. And
He's got a while.
I wanted to give a quick shout out. Emily, you've got a bunch of fans of your Meditotians there that are recognizing you. Yes,
voice.
folks, if you are wondering, that
Yep.
is Emily from the Meditotians there currently here on the stream. Awesome.
We don't put the puffin up on the Meditotians because I don't think that it
Yeah.
would add anything. to
No,
it.
because they're huffing and puffing, and so the narration just isn't as good. Okay, moving right along, everybody.
Yeah, Patrick,
go for
I
it.
was just gonna say over on Twitch we've had a lot of folks popping into the chat with Animal Crossing references. I know Animal
Yes,
Crossing is big. Yeah,
I see the C
a sea
plus,
bass.
the C plus
It's a
mentions
C
there.
plus.
Yeah.
But that brings up a good point and a good question that someone asked. Are there different types of sea bass? Because the sea bass that we see in this Animal Crossing game looks absolutely nothing like the sea bass that we are looking at right now.
So this species is a giant sea bass, a scientific name Stereolopsis gigas. We also on this coast have a white sea bass. I do know, so common names sometimes change with fish, and these guys used to be called black sea bass up until a paper was published a couple years ago. But there's a lot of confusion with a black sea bass on East Coast. That is actually a very popular game fish, a very popular eating fish. And you're not supposed to eat these giant sea bass, but those East Coast ones are okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I do not play Animal Crossing. So maybe one of those is one of the Animal Crossing.
It definitely, the ones in Animal Crossing resemble more of like the striped sea bass that we have in MBT and fishes like that, definitely.
Yeah, white sea bass look a little similar to that too. So it might be the white sea bass.
Yeah, and for those of you folks that are wondering, is the giant sea bass a grouper? Is it that type of fish? That's a very common question. Grouper, sea bass, those are common names that get thrown around for so many different fish. But giant sea bass is actually a type of wreck fish, like a shipwreck wreck fish. So not a grouper like a Goliath grouper or any of those grouper that you might be familiar with from more tropical waters. And for those of you wondering, the fish that's currently right behind the giant sea bass with the white chin, the black head, the orange mid-body, that is our male California sheephead there that just swam by there, for those of you that are wondering there in the chat. Kelsey, I wanted to go to another video that you had for us, which is the wolf eels eating. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because these wolf eels are hilarious. They look so funny. Can you tell us about our wolf eels?
Well, yeah, giant sea bass are up there for me, but my very favorite fish in the world is a wolf eel. They're very cool fish. They are called eel, even though technically they're not an eel. They've got pectoral fins on the side, so that means they're a fish, but whoever named them in the first place thought that, well, it's a 6-foot long thing, named it an eel.
Not an eel, not a wolf, but
not an eel, not a wolf. But we have got 2 juveniles underneath the touch table, and we've got 3 adults in the Kelp Forest exhibit. They're fun animals to have. They often are hiding in caves, so we have to go to them. I think one of the pictures, this young male, he's a bit of a picky eater too. He doesn't like fish. He prefers squid, but sometimes you gotta shake up their diet a little bit. They've got very powerful jaws, and they can actually crack through crabs and urchins and all sorts of animals. Yeah, they're a cool fish. are one of my favorites.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a lot of folks mentioning that they look a little bit like Statler and Waldorf, just kind of hanging out in their cracks with their grumpy old faces, making commentary about the rest of everyone, and
Yeah,
people are
pretty
enjoying
much.
seeing the video there of you hand feeding these eels. And the question that I just saw go by, what is your schedule of feeding like right now? Because not all of the staff can go in at the same time. So how many times are
That's
people
true.
going in to feed?
So we are at least feeding them from with the Kelp Forest exhibit. We're feeding them every day. We only have divers that can go in 3 days a week, just with our schedule right now. And so Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, we have divers go in that like bring and hand feed those leopard sharks, hand feed the wolf eels. And then that is when we have our giant sea bass training sessions as well. The other days, we do give them food from the surface, and those animals are welcome to come up and eat if they want. And if they're absolutely starving, they will. That young male has been out and about a lot lately. But yeah, we're still going to them 3 times a week.
That's wonderful. Emily, do you see any questions we should get to? I've seen a few general questions about the Kelp Forest exhibit dimensions. Can you tell us, maybe, Kelsey, how big is the Kelp Forest? How much water is in there? Do you have the species?
It is 28 feet deep. It is 330,000 gallons, so 1/3 gallons. And you know what? I literally just finished the census, counting all the animals in there, and I
Whoa.
cannot remember how many we have.
So quite a few.
Hundreds,
lot.
hundreds,
Yes.
and dozens of species of algae as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of what I had to do, is count all of that.
And that's probably one of the most interesting things, I think, from a biologist standpoint when you visit the Aquarium Kelp Forest exhibit, is that there's hundreds of species of algae in there. And Kelsey, I know you're represented as a giant kelp frond right now, but you're not planting those kelp in there, right? Like, those are just coming in.
Yeah, all of those. Yeah, it's pretty self-sustaining when it comes to kelp. We do transplant some of them, like some of the ones, especially that grow on the back wall, or their holdfasts are a foot or two below the water line, just because we can bring them down at depth and they can grow a little bit better. But yeah, most everything you see in there is all homegrown. That's the benefit of having an exhibit that's been there for 36 years.
And
So you are an aquarist and a gardener here in the Kelp Forest.
Yes, and my mom would crack up because I was not big into gardening growing up.
Wow.
Still not huge into gardening, but underwater gardening with algae, I'm getting really good at that.
And
yeah, we have a question kind of related to what we were just talking about, that this is a self-sustaining exhibit. Folks are asking about the water. The water is coming straight from the Monterey Bay.
Yeah, straight from Monterey Bay. During the day, we have it go through some sand filters, just so visibility for our guests and for our webcam guests is going to be better. But at night, it does get some of that raw seawater coming in. So any phytoplankton, zooplankton, anything like that is coming in, and that's part of what creates that nice, healthy kelp. And that was in 1984 when it opened. That's what they wanted the focal point of the aquarium to be. Nobody had grown giant kelp in captivity before. We were the first ones. Other people have now, and that's awesome, but it's kind of cool to have some of the original ones.
Yeah. And speaking of that, Kelsey, Curtis has a really good view right now of the kelp swaying right now. So you answered a few questions. Yeah, the water directly from the Monterey Bay. Can you tell us, where is the swaying coming from? We often see visitors when they're at the aquarium standing in front of the exhibit, and if you stand behind them, you start seeing everybody start matching that sway going back and forth.
It's
so
kind of mesmerizing, isn't it? You just go with it. At the top of the exhibit on one side, we've got a large, pretty much a plunger going up and down that creates, it's big. You need the big one to get water motion in that tank. So it's helping to stimulate the types of waves that you would see in the wild as well.
That's awesome. And speaking of the back wall, Kelsey, I want to throw up this image real quick of some bull kelp
Ah,
growing
that's the baby bull kelp.
on the back wall. So this is taken over by the diver step, looking kind of straight up. So you can see a little bit of the lights on the upper left there from outside of the exhibit. But there's some kelp there growing on the back of the exhibit, that bull kelp. Can you tell us a little bit about your bull kelp babies?
Oh, this was a project I was very interested in, and I'm happy with how well it's been doing. So one of the things with this exhibit is we've got algae growing in it, but we also have algae eaters in there. Those opali like nibbling on a lot of the algae, and bull kelp seems to be their favorite. So previously, a lot of times it wouldn't be able to grow up enough for visitors to really see. So what I did is I went through, going back to the gardening analogy, I went through the exhibit and kind of took all of them off the back wall and used a knife and got their holdfast off and glued them actually to a certain section of the wall and grouped them all together. And when they were all together like that, the opali didn't bite at them as much.
Interesting.
Also, they tended to be closer to the surface of the exhibit where there was a lot of water motion, but if they were at the surface for too long, the sun would burn through those bulbs and it would actually burst. So I would try to get them before they would burst and then transplant them down, and then they would grow up even further. But yeah, bull kelp is just an annual algae, and so all of those that were there last year previously died off, but we just had last week my first bull kelp, baby bull kelp.
Yeah.
And it is
Yay.
right by the diver steps, and it's adorable. So hopefully I'll be able to start doing that again soon.
That's so great.
Cool.
Emily,
That's amazing.
do you see any questions in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked this one over there on Twitch. You were just talking about doing um the survey inside of the kelp forest. Kelsey, were there any surprise animals or
Oh,
algae that you saw in there? Since that water is coming through raw at night, you know, you get all those little plankters coming in. Did you see anything that was really
we've
cool or surprising?
well, part of it is we've got some cool baby rockfish in there. Those either came in from outside or if our rockfish bred on exhibit and then the little babies survived up. It's hard to tell. But there's a couple of places where there's some little like 3 to 4 inch rockfish hunkered down.
Oh,
And it's kind of fun to keep track of those. Another fun thing, we do have one jack mackerel that's in there that came in with in an anchovy or sardine school somehow, and the anchovies and sardines are long gone, but that one jack mackerel still hangs out with the half moon, and he's still in there and he's doing fine. But it's just the only one too, which is never our intention, but it works.
Yeah, it's funny how so many different fish species school together based on size, and then as everyone goes through their species-specific growth spurt, you end up kind of maybe winding up on your lonesome if you're a jack mackerel hanging out with anchovies, and then all of a sudden it's just like, wait, you're really different. Like, oh, yeah, I guess. Okay, I'll go try to find someone else to school with. And
yeah, pretty much. And he's about the half moon size, and the half moons don't fully school as the sardines do. But sometimes they clump together, especially if there's some kelp over, at the top. They like hanging out under those kelp patties. So he likes hanging out with them.
That's awesome. I have a quick question from Sebastian, age 7, over on Facebook, who wants to know, are kelp and seaweed the same thing, Kelsey? What's the difference between kelp and seaweed?
So seaweed is usually the name for pretty much all underwater algae, I think. So kelp, especially giant kelp, macrocystis that we're talking about, is a specific species of seaweed.
Yeah. And so, just to expand on that, seaweed often is just a catch-all for any plant growing in the ocean. And then kelp is this brown algae that we're seeing there with the giant kelp and the bull kelp. And I think, depending, obviously, I don't want to keep answering this question, Kelsey, as you know, because the deeper we go into this, the more people are going to be like, no, this is kelp. No, this is kelp. Here's where the line is drawn at kelp. We made the mistake during Shrimp Week of trying to say what a shrimp was and what a shrimp was not. And it turns
Oh,
out that
did you get into a shrimp versus prawn
oh,
debate going on?
there are shrimp people
Oh
out there
yeah.
who draw some lines in the sand that we certainly cross. So to answer your question, Sebastian, yes, seaweed, generally any plant that's growing in the ocean. Kelp, very specifically, is a type of brown alga or algae for the plural that you see there. But yeah, I don't want to go any further into that. Otherwise,
We answered the question.
yeah, we're gonna make some phycologists
Yeah.
very angry. Emily, do you see any other questions for us?
We've had quite a few wonderful ones go by. One real quick one that we can answer. We had Huggy Biscuit over on Twitch, age 30, asking, what kind of sharks do we have cruising around in here? These ones are
Ooh.
leopard sharks. Huggy Biscuit, thanks for hopping in and joining us over there on Twitch. But Kelsey, specifically for you,
Mhm.
we've had a couple of folks asking, just most recently, the ones that I've seen are Olivia over on YouTube and Amy over there on Facebook. They see you talking about all this amazing stuff. How did you become a marine biologist? And is this something that you always knew that you wanted to do?
Um, yes, in a nutshell. I grew up in Seattle and I've always loved the ocean and I've always loved animals and I've worked with animals since I was 14. And I have a degree in zoology from Washington State, go Cougs.
Woo.
And after after college, I got an internship at an aquarium, and at the same time, I started scuba diving in Seattle, and it was over. That was it. Uh, I just fell in love with it, and so yeah, I've always known I've wanted to work with animals. I've always had an interest in the ocean, and just keep on work. I mean, I've worked and volunteered and took a lot of science courses. So I've known I wanted to do something in this area. And yeah, after a year at Point Defiance in Tacoma, I got a job down here. And somehow that was 10 years ago. I don't know how
Wow.
that happened. I blinked.
A whole decade.
10 years passed.
And we have you up on screen right now, Kelsey, with that selfie with the giant sea bass there that you took a little bit earlier. So, yeah, for all of you folks that are tuning in right now who want to be marine biologists, this is just one of many different things that you can do as a job. But as you were describing, Kelsey, you end up doing a lot of different things when you have that interest in marine science. You end up doing so many different things because there's so many different
There's
jobs.
a lot of options.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. And so if you would have asked me if I was 8, if I would be underwater gardening as part of my job, I might not have
Yeah.
gone with that. But
Yeah, they don't teach that class in college,
no,
really. Yeah.
No.
no, not
Underwater
really.
gardening. No.
My mom tried to teach me gardening, but I wasn't paying too much attention. I do call her for advice though on some of this stuff. It's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, Patrick, do you have any questions? Otherwise, I can jump in with some more.
No, go for it. And folks, if you are tuning in right now, thank you so much. We've been talking here for, about 40 minutes coming up with amazing aquarist Kelsey, who is our kelp forest queen at the moment, making sure that this kelp forest exhibit looks good. If you were watching the live cam a little bit earlier today, you may have seen her and her crew inside cleaning the windows, doing general maintenance. And then if you're watching the cams and you see feeding and training sessions happening, that's going to be Kelsey and her team as well. So thank you so much for tuning in all across the internet, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, YouTube. Thank you all so much for being there. We got a lot of great folks tuning in. And yeah, we got a few more questions we can go after. Emily, did you have one? Otherwise, I see one right here.
Yeah, well, one thing that I did want to share with Kelsey, just in case you are thinking about making any official name changes right now,
Okay.
someone suggested that you could, instead of being called Kelsey, being called Kelpsey.
Kelpsey.
Uh-huh.
Kelpsey, which was a very good pun there. But for right now, Kelsey,
Yes.
we were talking about some of the training that we're doing with our fish before. What kind of determines if a fish can be trained or not? At the aquarium, we're working with the giant sea basses right now and some of our
Honestly,
leopard
most
sharks and
fish
stuff,
can
but
be trained. I mean, people have even trained goldfish in home aquariums.
it's really how much time that we want to put into that
That's
training.
exactly
Yeah.
it. It's how much time we have to put into it because it does take a while. And it's also going to be the benefit overall for them. And with our giant sea bass, they historically have had that water, that Monterey Bay water coming in has a lot of good stuff with it, but it also has some parasites that come in as well. And sea bass historically have had a heavy parasite load that we've needed to take care of, and that's where those freshwater baths come in 4 times a year. So since they're an animal that we're already taking out in Canada.
Another question that we had earlier that we didn't quite get to,
Oh yeah.
talking about those freshwater baths,
Mhm.
that's something that we do for the giant sea bass to keep those parasites kind of off of them. The parasites can't
Yeah.
tolerate that change in the
The fish
salinity
are
that
fine
the fish
for
are
about
fine.
for 4 minutes. They're fine. They're good, but the parasites, some of them die, some of them swell and then pop off. And actually, if you see the water in the freshwater bath afterwards, it looks a little bit like a glittery disco ball
I don't
of
think I've ever heard it called
parasites.
that. A glittery disco ball of parasites.
Yeah, pretty much. So we
It's a
do
beautiful
our
That's a
image.
party right
yeah,
there.
so we do our giant sea bass, and then in the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit, some of the benthic critters like the bat rays, they get freshwater.
That's
And
awesome.
Kelsey, I saw another question going by there on Facebook, and it happens to be one of our number one questions that we get all the time at the aquarium. We're looking at this kelp forest community right now. We have predator and prey living together in here. How do you keep the fish from going after one another?
Well, part of it is because we're feeding them all the time. They're not putting forth a lot of extra effort when they know that food. Right now, it's just coming to them once a day. But fish have a much different metabolism than us, and a lot of people are always concerned about those sharks. And sharks, months, delicious, sustainable food, hand fed to them. Let's see here, like even in our off days, 3 times a week, and they can get it from the surface if you want. They're not going to put forth a lot of extra effort into hunting for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. And that kind of answers Tessa, 9-year-old Tessa's question
Mhm.
over there on Facebook. What exactly are we feeding the sharks, the leopard sharks in
Oh,
here?
we have the leopard sharks get different smaller fishes like whitebait and sardines. They also are a fan of shrimp or prawn, who knows, shrimp or prawn, and squid as well.
And we heard
Pretty much anything small that'll fit in their mouths.
we're,
The
we're
dulcet tones of Trooper there. Sorry
yeah,
about that.
we're hearing a little bit of Trooper there in the background as well. And at some point here, we will do a Trooper reveal here on the stream. But if you heard some woofs there, that
We'll
would be
make an icon.
that would be
her.
Trooper wondering where her prawns and hand delivered calamari happen to be.
Well, she knows that right now she's getting extra treats to be quiet. So I have her. I'm actively training her right now for this new whole work at home situation that we're in. So
That's awesome. Let's see, Kelsey, we had a few other questions here that maybe you feel like hopping on.
Yeah, give them.
What is the difference between algae and quote unquote a true plant that you find on land?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, and actually, we do have some true plants in Kelp Forest exhibit. They're on the back wall. You can't see it. Part of it is how they get their nutrients. So, plants or trees get their nutrients through their roots. And then they've got leaves or pine needles or anything like that. Algae uses what would be their roots. So, sometimes you'll hear kelp and it looks like a holdfast. And it looks a little bit like a root system, but that's just what they use to attach themselves to rocks, and they actually get their nutrients from the sunlight. So all of those big blades of kelp, that's how they get the sun, and that's how they are eating essentially. On the back wall, we've got some Phyllospatix, which is a surf grass, which is a bright green grass. That is actually one of the few flowering plants. Even though it's underwater, it's technically a plant. So they're getting their nutrients the same way that plants in your garden would get nutrients too, through their roots, which is why normally they're higher in the water column. You're not going to find them too deep. So in Monterey Bay, we've got the surf grass, and we also have eel grass. So if anybody's been to the slough lately, Elkhorn Slough, you'll see a lot of eel grass up there.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do my best here to see if I can find a photo of that. While you're mentioning there the surf grass, you see a lot of it at low tide off the back deck of the aquarium as well, folks. If you're ever out here, and that is a flowering plant, so those do have little seed pods that develop, which is really really cool to see when it does happen there. I can't seem to find a surf grass photo ready to go. Sorry, buddy. Anyway, look it up. Surf grass.
Surf grass.
It's a fun thing. Yeah, go for
Patrick,
it, Emily.
I just wanted to jump in. We have a couple of teachers watching on stream right now, which is wonderful.
Well,
we're
thank
so
you to the
happy.
teachers. You guys are doing a lot
They're
too.
doing an
Thank
amazing
you.
job right now, keeping all the kids educated in these very strange circumstances. And we're so happy that these videos can kind of help out with that.
Hey. I'm here for all the algae puns.
We have a lot of the identifications for this fish listed on our website, but Kelsey, do you recommend anywhere for folks to go to for some help IDing some of the other fish that might be in here? I know that there are a couple
Well, if you want to go old school and use some books, there's some good identification books. And honestly, anything from Milton Love is wonderful. He's got probably more than you'd want to know about fishes of the Northeast Pacific. He's got 3 different versions of it, and they are very detailed.
It's a delightful book.
And they're so much fun to read.
They really are.
I've seen him talk before. He's really fun.
For an identification book, it is one of the best, most most lighthearted ones to read.
Yeah.
Some of them can get very scientific, and that one's a good scientific read there. As far as other resources that you can use, there are great apps like iNaturalist is a great one.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Some of the fishes on there. Check out some of those identifications. Patrick, do you have any other suggestions?
No, I mean, Milton Love is definitely the resource when it comes to books, and Marbles, etc. over on Twitch is asking, how is that spelled? Milton, Milton, and Love, like the feeling we have for the Kelp Forest Cam. So Milton Love is great. You mentioned him already. iNaturalist is a fantastic resource to identify fish species. There's a few websites out there like Stanford's CNET.
That was another one I was going to mention too. They've got a good one, and they also have a lot of good algae identification too. So if you really want to get particular, if you're looking at the Kelp Forest Cam, you can start identifying some of the other algae. There's a lot of reds in there, a lot of other brown algae.
Definitely.
That would be a good site.
And there's also the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary has a website called the Simon. I forget exactly what that acronym is, but Simon has it. Sanctuary Simon. Anyway, those will give you some good overviews of general things. But then all of these have, you can keep going deeper and deeper into it. Where there's algae identification books, and then there's all the crustacean ID books. It keeps going forever there. So I do want to be mindful of your time, Kelsey. We have been streaming here for about 50 minutes, and for you folks that are tuning in, if you have any further questions, feel free. Emily, do you see anything pressing that we feel?
A lot of the pressing stuff that's coming in right now, Patrick, are just big shout outs and thanks to you, Kelsey, for hopping onto this stream right now and chatting with everyone and helping to answer these questions and for helping us to take care of the animals during this time too.
Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, like I said earlier, I've worked with animals my whole life. So I've always I don't know what a Saturday, Sunday weekend or most holidays are. So in times like this, I know that I'm still coming to work and I'm still taking care of the animals because they still need watching, they still need feeding, they still need monitoring. So yeah, I've got about 10 minutes left, and then I have to go do rounds of my other galleries too, make sure everybody's good for the day. But I got time for a couple more.
Let's milk it while we've got you here, while we've got the cam going. Curtis has us zoomed in right now on the on one of the reefs. We've got an opali, which is the fish there with the white spot on its back, everybody.
Gonna eat something.
Yep.
Yep, you're gonna eat something.
Trying to find
You're
something
gonna eat some of my kelp.
to munch on. Oh, hey, we've got that senorita that just swam by. Kelsey, I'm going to bring up a photo of something that happened when I was diving in the exhibit to take some photos the other day, where the
take a nip out of you.
the senoritas came directly up to the camera with no fear in the world whatsoever and decided to see if they could help clean the camera of parasites. So that's what's up on the screen right now, is the last thing that an isopod sees before it joins
before it comes off.
Yeah, the grand fish dance in the sky. Can you tell us a little bit about the senoritas and what they do?
Yeah, senoritas, often, a lot of people are familiar with tropical cleaning fish, especially like blue stripe cleaner fish. Senoritas are kind of our cold water version of that. They can go up to fish and take off little parasites, little isopods. And sometimes in the morning, if you come in, especially if people aren't here, you'll see some of the rockfish, instead of being like their regular shape, they're more vertical in the water column, and the senoritas come in. So I'm sorry to say your camera was very dirty and he just wanted to make sure it was clean. That's all.
That I really appreciate them looking out. And let's see, I've got another photo here of 3 of them, mouths wide open, looking directly into camera right now. Here it is up on screen there. Those senoritas just maybe even looking at their own reflection and trying to pick off little bits of food that they may be seeing there.
Possibly. There was actually been, we've had some funny pictures with the sheephead lately, with our female sheephead in one of our exhibits. Anytime we've tried to take a selfie or held up a camera to her, she's looking at that fish wondering, wait, what's going on? You're a big fish in my area, and kind of charges her reflection a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting. Very, very
cool.
Cool.
I think Renee, an aquarist I have, has a picture with sheephead giving him the side eye, but given the photo on the cell phone, the side eye.
That's great. We also have in view right now some perch in there. You know, we talk about rockfish a lot. We talk about senoritas and stuff, but we have many different species of perch, surf perch. And I think one thing that, you know, people come to the aquarium and they see the kelp forest exhibit, they see this assemblage of fish, and it's like, oh, cool, yeah, that's what a kelp forest looks like. But we really do, in the Northeast Pacific, in our area, have a very unique for the world type of fish assemblage where we have so many species of rockfish, so many species of surf perch. That's not too common other places in the world there. And Curtis is looking at a few perch there on the lower left there. Can you tell us maybe about the perch that are in there?
Yeah, we have got, oh goodness, we've got rainbow perch, striped perch, pile perch, black perch, kelp perch, the rubber lip perch in there. Yeah, we've got lots of different species. And what's really cool about perch too is they actually give live birth. And if you see an adult mother perch and then all of the 20 live babies that came out of her, they come out very large for the size.
They do.
So that's actually one of the ones that's fun for me to count during that census I was talking about, was all of the kelp perch, because they are producing in there. And then you'll see little tiny ones hiding up in the kelp that'll eventually get bigger and bigger and then become the adult ones. Count later.
That's so cool. Hey, Kelsey, how often do you do those surveys in the kelp forest?
So we do a survey of everything in the aquarium once a year. We usually do a pretty good job if any fish additions are going in or anything comes out, of keeping track of it. Because over time, sometimes the numbers don't match up. And so once a year for every exhibit in the aquarium, we do a census. And they actually do today. So I knew I was doing this. I got mine done yesterday.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so hopefully everything's done.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work, yeah. I'm in charge of the kelp forest, but I also work in both kelp zone and splash zone on the second floor. So that's a lot of exhibits. There's a team working with that too, but
and it sounds
it's a lot.
Sounds
but it's
like
worth it.
somewhere in the background we've got a very distressed gull that's wondering if it can go after one of the fish here on the stream. And I think
Which sometimes we do have people say that,
Yeah.
or if they're looking at it from below, they think that a penguin escaped and is in the kelp forest exhibit because they just see the feet. It's like, no, that's a gull. That's a wild one.
yeah, and it looks like right now Curtis has us zoomed in on two black perch, maybe doing a
Yep.
little bit of mating
Oh,
behavior.
they might be. I saw some striped perch mating at the end of my second dive today.
Oh, and look at it go. It's chasing away the striped perch right now as perfect on cue there, Kelsey. So black perch are the perch there with those vertical black bars that you can see. And then the striped perch have the horizontal bars, but looks like a little bit of courting behavior going on right now.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's what happens when you simulate a habitat very well. You get some natural courtship behaviors.
That's
How we can
awesome.
tell the fish are happy in there.
Green is in the air. They're doing their thing.
Yeah, if you folks have been watching the live cams all the time, you may recall that yesterday during the penguin live cam, there were a few penguins trying to make more penguins during the live cam. So that's definitely a sign of animals that feel like most of their needs are met. And they're going to see about fulfilling the other one. So that's those are the black perch.
They've got the energy to spare. They're not hunting or they're not wanting for food. So they've got some energy to burn.
That's great stuff. Thank you, Curtis, on the cam there.
Yeah, that was a great shot. We've got some other perch in there. There was a rainbow perch that just went by. Got the stripers up in the corner too. And the opali. The ever-present opali eating my algae.
Chowing down, doing what they do best. Yeah, that rainbow perch now, folks, visible just above the opali and now next to the social media team graphic and now behind Kelsey's graphic. Off it goes. That rainbow perch there. Awesome. Oh, people are asking, what is that extremely bright object on the lower right there? And I believe that is in a green anemone, right?
Yeah, that was a green anemone. That sometimes when the light hits it, it's bright white.
Look at it go.
So yeah, that's been one of the things on my project list is to bring in more green anemones. But you should see my project list. I've got a lot I want to do.
So you're definitely someone
I haven't been able to get to that yet.
You're definitely someone trying to keep your anemones close. There we go. We're zooming in.
Hey,
there we go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Ooh, and the camera having even a hard time focusing on just how brilliant that is. Yeah, green anemones are anemones that get a lot of their food from the sun. And this one happens to be very bright. There's that anemone right there. Thank you, Curtis. And look at all that algae. Look at all that beautiful red and brown algae all around that anemone.
All right, teachers, let's get out your books and let's ID all the algae around the anemone now.
We got some sea grapes on the lower left. This is awesome. Look at that. Okay, everyone. All right, we are maybe a minute and a half away from wrapping up. Get your last little, actually, you know what? No more questions. You know what we need right now in the last minute? We need all of you folks out there to give a huge, huge thank you to Kelsey here in the chat. So YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, in the chat, say thank you so much to Kelsey. We really, really appreciate you spending some time there. We should start seeing those messages on about a 20-second delay. Oh, there we go. We got the hearts. Clap, clap, clap going in. Yeah, awesome, Kelsey. Thank you so much for your time today.
You are very welcome. I had fun diving in this exhibit today. I always have fun talking about it too.
Well, we appreciate you so much for taking an hour out of your day to come and chat with us.
You're very welcome,
and
you
chat
guys.
with everyone online. I know that it's so much appreciated and so much loved to hear about how we take care of the animals straight from the source.
And you have been renamed Kelpsey,
Kelpsey
for the time being by everybody here in the chat.
Okay. Well, next time if we do this again, I expect to see Kelpsey in animal care.
Yes.
Instead of Kelsey, so.
Absolutely.
Done.
I can make that edit today.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Curtis, for being on the cam. Thanks again, Kelsey. And
yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, this was awesome. Emily, thank you so much for being there. Thanks for all the help.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, thank you for throwing up all those videos and the photos during the stream there, and for helping us answer some of those questions. And folks, we hope that you had a great time watching the stream today as well. Afterwards, we'll put up the Kelp Cam again so that you can continue to watch with without us talking, but continue to watch all of the awesome animals in here that Kelsey just talked about, um, and watch all of the beautiful algae, the kelp swaying back and forth, and hopefully that'll be a little positive moment in your day today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you again soon at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Thanks again for
All
spending
right.
some time with us. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, thanks.